Hello and welcome to the Blockchain Startup Show. I'm Pooja Jain. This week, we're looking at a very special startup. It is, in fact, a very important arm of a super successful startup, CoinSwitch Ventures. CoinSwitch Ventures, our startup of the week, is the venture capital arm of India's leading crypto exchange, CoinSwitch. Since its launch in August 2022, CoinSwitch Ventures' Web3 Discovery Fund has facilitated nearly $25 million in subsequent funding across 12 Web3 and blockchain startups that are built on blockchain infrastructure, blockchain analytics, and real-world asset tokenization. It has also expanded its VC investor network from 6 to over 70 participants. By equipping early-stage founders with both capital and strategic guidance, CoinSwitch Ventures is propelling some of the most exciting Web3 and blockchain-based projects pan-India. CoinSwitch Ventures clearly subscribes to the policy that Web 3.0 and blockchain will be the cornerstone of the new digital, decentralized economy. And to shed more light on the subject, I'm joined by Parth Chaturvedi, Investments Lead at CoinSwitch Ventures. Parth, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and for sake of some context setting for our viewers, if you could give us an overview of your original foray into Web3, and how did you first set foot in Web 3.0 specific venture capital?
Thank you for having me on the show, first of all. And so my journey in Web3 has been pretty, interesting in that sense that I come from the traditional finance world. So I was with JP Morgan for the longest time, about 7 years. But back in 2018, JP Morgan had started, delving into the blockchain space by setting up an internal unit to look into the technology, look into how it can disrupt different lines of businesses. So that unit is called Onyx now. My proper crypto career sort of began in 21. That's when I moved to FalconX, which is like a leading institutional trading platform. That's where I got to know about how this market really works. And using that, experience is how I forayed into the India ecosystem by joining CoinSwitch last year.
Well, given your experience, walk us through the underlying CoinSwitch Ventures thesis. What's the thesis that's specific to CoinSwitch?
The underlying thought for the fund is, it's called the Web3 Discovery Fund for a reason, because we want to discover, Indian Web3 founders and builders. So, our core thesis is we have to support the Indian ecosystem, which could be Indian developers building in India, or, Indian founders who have found more regulatory clarity in certain other jurisdictions and building out from there. Right. So primarily two things to focus on: early stage Web3 companies. So pre-seed, seed, that's where we really think they need a strategic investor coming on board. And secondly, it has to have some kind of India connect so that we keep on strengthening the Indian ecosystem.
Well, Parth, give me a sense of how does essentially being a fund that's housed under an exchange make you different from a normal LP fund?
I think it's pretty remarkably different in that sense. So I try to compare it to Coinbase Ventures in the last bear market. That's when they started investing in companies, and now they're one of the most prolific investors in the Web3 space. Yeah. So again, we are also structured very similarly. It's a corporate VC. So if you're deploying our own balance sheet money into these companies, and the idea is that we bring in much more than capital as strategic investors. We have 19 million registered users. We're also thinking about different forays that probably we can't build in the exchange because of bandwidth, where we can leverage these startups and explore new product categories as well.
Well, then what do you look for specifically in a founder or in a team prior to making the determination to invest?
So again, it also depends on the current time frame that we are in at. So we are in the peak of the, probably not at the peak of the bear market anymore, but we were in a very elongated bear market. So belief in what they're doing is very important for founders, for investors to see that, these people are ready to face the downturns as well. Right now, the funding environment is also not the most conducive, but there are founders who believe in what they're doing, and they see that, that there's going to be large scale impact from their solutions. So Web3, believing in your concepts or believing in the whole, Web3 narrative as such is a very strong, green flag for me. Other than that, past experiences, if they've built something in the space, Again, because everything is so public and transparent in blockchains, they can show their proof of work. Like literally, they can show they've been part of some Discord communities, or they've helped build out projects. So those are some of the key things that I look for. And again, any kind of team dynamics as well. Like, so if there are 3 founders or 2 founders, like what is their relationship been in the past? That is also something that we keenly follow.
Fair enough. And on the flip side, how does CoinSwitch Ventures then aim to provide value, over and above the initial investment check that it, of course, equips companies with?
So one thing that I mentioned before, like as strategic investors, we can, allow those products to really grow with CoinSwitch and its user base. But more important than that, and the thing that I want to highlight is the partner VC network that we have set up. So when we started off the fund, we realized very quickly that there's a huge problem of visibility for Indian startups.
Right.
Not a lot of global funds have an India presence. There are not a lot of local Web3 funds as such. So those founders don't really have avenues to showcase, what they're building. So we started off with 7 partner VCs. Now that number has crossed 70. So
Right.
globally, I'm trying to, on a monthly basis, I share deal flow with them. I try to showcase the projects that we think are, worth their time in terms of valuation. And that has also helped us in facilitating, funding for some of the startups in our portfolio.
And could you walk us through perhaps the depth and the breadth of the portfolio that you manage at CoinSwitch Ventures?
So it's still early days, I would say, and early days in the peaking in the funding winter. It's very difficult to get rounds in place. But what we've managed to achieve is about 12 investments in the last 8-9 months. And within those 12 investments, we have facilitated about 25 million worth of funding, and actively evaluating, I would say, a deal pipeline of over 50 projects right now. So hoping if the funding cycle picks up, those rounds will start closing very quickly.
Mm-hmm. And if I could ask you to do a bit of a deep dive path, what are some of the sectors within Web 3.0 which are of particular interest to you as an investor?
So again, in the bear market, something that which separates it from the hype of the bull market is those hype projects like NFTs or metaverse are sort of in the background now. People are building infrastructure tools, like how Web3 could become easier to use. User onboarding is another major theme that we are seeing. A lot of easier wallets are being developed. So those are 2 big themes that we are seeing. So blockchain infra, which could be data and analytics companies, staking providers, or anything that's building the base layer for the technology to grow. And the second is user onboarding, getting the next billion users into Web3.
Phenomenal. And how do you believe that your investment strategy has essentially changed or transformed? How have you revisited that investment strategy post the crypto slowdown?
Right from the very beginning, the fund has been very frugal in its nature, and extremely our due diligences of I would say in-depth due diligence is put in place before getting into any kind of investment. But no change in terms of belief in how Web3 can really revolutionize the internet. I think it goes much beyond just finance. So we see a lot of startups in the supply chain space. We see a lot of startups in the content creation space. I think these avenues are still under explored by investors, but in the next bull cycle, we'll see a lot of real world use cases of Web3 technology.
And how might you classify or say quantify or equate essentially as success at CoinSwitch Ventures?
So again, both from a fund perspective as well as personally, for me, the idea is to fund 100 founders coming out from India, building in the Web3 space. Timelines are going to get stretched. We initially set a target for 2024, 100 startups funded by 24. Maybe because of the funding winter that extends. But for me, that the quantity and quality in those projects are 2 things that I'm really looking forward to. So we've hit the 12 mark right now, 50 plus deals already in actively being due diligence and evaluated. So hopefully we are able to touch that 100 mark, and some of them turn out to become like unicorns.
What role do you see India playing in the larger Web 3.0 landscape going forward?
I think it is India's, 2000 IT's moment again. Like we're at the crossroads where we have the talent here in the country. Like several reports have highlighted this. We have the third highest developer base for Web3 in the country. More than 10,000 devs are there. And I have seen this in reality when I attended ETH India last year. So ETH India happened late last year. More than 4,000 Web3 developers participated. In a matter of 24 hours, they were able to build 400 plus projects. So the scale at which our country operates and this, the talent that we have, we really can become global leaders in the Web3 space. So I'm very bullish. Like we're hoping that, the regulatory authorities also see the promise that the sector has. And we are seeing it in other jurisdictions like UK rolling out the red carpet, Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, all of them trying to attract more talent to their jurisdictions. We already have that talent in place. So we just need the right set of frameworks, and capital is going to flow in there.
It's time for a short break, but on the other side, our conversation with CoinSwitch Ventures continues. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Blockchain Startup Show. This week, we're in conversation with CoinSwitch Ventures, the venture capital arm of India's leading crypto exchange, CoinSwitch. Parth, for my understanding and for the benefit of our viewers, what's the typical time horizon within which you evaluate whether an investment is in fact a hit or a miss?
So because we come in, we are only focusing on early stage projects. So this is pre-seed, seed rounds. The typical evaluation process, we want to see some kind of, traction on the product. So ideally, even if you've done beta testing for 2 months or 3 months, you will have some data to showcase, okay, the product is doing well. It's found some sort of PMF. PMF is very important at our stage, the product market fit. That's something that we ideally look for. And for that, you need a 2-3 month product being tested out live. In terms of our investment, fructifying, that is a very long-term game. I would say 5 years is a minimum time horizon that we'll look into. As active investors, we want to handhold them in this entire process. So when we invest in somebody, we are doing it for the long term. We are going to be active partners with you for the next 5 years or so.
Well, that's helpful. And also for the benefit of our startup founders that may be tuning in and watching the show, walk us through the CoinSwitch Ventures due diligence process. What are the criteria that you essentially look for? And what are the criteria that perhaps make it a no-go?
So red flags, I think I should probably just touch on that point first. Red flags are anything where there's some kind of I would say honest, lack of honesty in the founders, where they're trying to claim things that are not really true. And basically, if you put something out there in your discussion materials or in your data room, which we can verify from external sources that it's not true, that dishonesty becomes a very big red flag. Because we all know that early stage founders still have to scale. You don't need to come out saying that, okay, we have achieved the greatest product ever developed or something of that sort. You need to be humble in your approach, that we are still trying to figure out where our product can scale. So in terms of red flags, that's one. For our due diligence, I would say primarily we are focused on the market that you're trying to go after. And that in itself is driven a lot by the trends that we are seeing in the sector. So because Web3 is changing so rapidly, last cycle NFTs were a trend or a theme. Right now we are seeing a big theme around real world asset tokenization, where you can tokenize real estate, you can tokenize financial instruments. So basis those themes, what is the market size that you can probably capture? So that is something that we really go after. Then we try to see another like big thing to focus on is moat. Like, how will you protect your business from competitors? Is your moat a tech moat? Is it a technological innovation that you've done that probably others can't replicate? Or is it like more of a partnership sort of a moat where you've built very strong partnerships with like other ecosystem players that probably like others won't be able to match at scale? So those 2 3 points, and like team again, like one of the key criteria for early stage investing is figure out the team. So their knowledge about the space, their experience in the space, and their drive to like succeed as well. That you get to know like in like probably like the 2 3 conversations that we do.
Sure, sure. And what are best practices that India could perhaps pick up from counterparts abroad when it comes to the Web 3.0 larger landscape?
So I think particularly any kind of frameworks in place that just give like some kind of I would say safety of sorts, that like things are not going to get changed overnight. That in itself will get like more builders interested. So I think the government is doing like a very measured approach here, and they are like counting for like global regulations to come in together, because like Web3 is like a global a force. You can't one country can't really decide how it's going to like regulate it. So I think once those are in place, we can see a lot of developer activity boom. Second is around education. So there is still a huge I would say lack of proper educating venues for blockchain or Web3 related technologies. Some institutes are doing it like as like side courses, but we don't really have like full scale degrees or diplomas being given on blockchain development. So that is something that we can like probably as a country focus more on. And again, this goes out for all like frontier tech, be it AI, be it machine learning, be it robotics.
Yeah.
We need like more education and R&D, like research and development support, so that the talent can actually like hone their skills and really come out on top.
Absolutely. And given the sheer pace of innovation in this space, right, how challenging is it to wear that investor hat at all times, knowing that what's relevant today could be obliterated tomorrow?
It's a risk that we have to take, and like again, it's a risk that comes with investing in frontier tech. Frontier tech, like you can't really like envision what's going to happen in the next like 5 years. So
right.
For Web3, like I'm of the view that we can't even imagine the business models that will come out.
Right.
Because we are democratizing like the internet. Like it's actually like content creators will have the ultimate say. Decentralized finance is going to give us like really great avenues of sourcing liquidity. So right now, if we are in that state where we can't really imagine how those business models come into place. So I like to think of it as that is why the active investor piece becomes very important. We need to be working with the startup founders, telling them, okay, this trend is probably not going to like last for long, so you need to pivot, or you need to explore like adjacent trends that you can probably excel at. So I think in a fast changing environment, the investor's role as like advisor also becomes very important.
Sure. And when it comes to onboarding users, as you referenced earlier in the conversation, from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0, what are the biggest differentiators in terms of user experience?
So as I told you, like in the beginning also, like, right now, Web3 user experience is pretty broken. Like you need to maintain like a private key. You need to maintain a recovery phrase, like which is like a 12-word seed phrase. So managing all of that is like not easy for like a daily user. What is happening is two major, wallet-related innovations. One is called MPC, multi-party computation, where basically your private key gets divided into 3 parts. And those 3 parts can be with like 3 different devices. So you don't really need to remember the private key whenever you are like signing, just that all those 3 parts need to agree. That's one. And the other is called account abstraction, which is like a very new phenomena in the Ethereum ecosystem, where basically you can use like social logins. So like just like you on current apps, when you come in, you want to log in, you need to give your email ID and set up a password. Very similar to that experience is going to allow you to access decentralized apps. So I think like the next wave, of user onboarding is already upon us. We are already seeing like number of active users going up, number of wallets being created going up. So in the next bull market, like when prices also go up, I think we will see like a lot of users coming to the space.
Right. And when we look at larger initiatives like Upskilling India, for example, right, or Digital India, for example, path, to what extent does Web 3.0 need to be more formally integrated into those national level agendas? I'd love your thoughts.
I think it's of primary importance. And like, again, as I mentioned, this is our IT moment again, that we can rebuild the internet in a more democratized way. And we can also we have the developer talent who can build it out. So I think we are setting up AI centers of excellence across the country. If similarly like blockchain centers of excellence can be set up, some kind of support for R&D, if only that could be formalized and channelized by the departments and giving them some kind of research and development grant, I think that would go a really long way. We also have the support of a lot of ecosystem funds. So like I would take to call out probably Solana, Tezos, Near, all of these, Polygon, all of them are trying to give grants to these young developers. If they can work in tandem with the government, so some kind of a public-private partnership, that could really scale this sector.
Sure. And what role do you anticipate CoinSwitch Ventures will play as a trailblazer in this space going forward?
So there are not a lot of Web3 funds in the country right now, which are only focused on Web3 related companies. So I want to be as a representative of the industry who's trying to help the other funds also see that there's value lying here. So some of the traditional VC funds got into the space in the bull market last time, but now they're sitting on the sidelines because it was more of a FOMO play rather than a thesis driven investment. So this is the perfect time for builders to build. Bear markets are for building, and this should be the time where these traditional funds also explore the space, build their thesis, and probably ride the wave when we see the next bull market.
Well, Parth, thank you so much for sharing such a rich range of insights with us and for taking the time to speak with us. We wish you all the very best.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
With that, this episode of the Blockchain Startup Show comes to a close. We trust that you found the insights shared of value. Thanks for watching.